What's up guys, it's Chris from Step Massive, and today I'm going to show you how I currently set up my hammock and my tarp system when I'm out backpacking. So I'm out here in early January, just came out to do 3 days of a kind of an impromptu backpacking trip out in some BLM land in Central California. Just wanted to come out and hang out in the hammock for a couple days. And so since I've got some time to kill, haven't really been doing a lot of hiking today, I just wanted to show you guys how I currently set up my hammock system. So just a disclaimer, I am not an expert at setting up hammocks or tarps. This is by no means the best way to set up the system or the only way to set up the system. I'm just going to show you guys how I am currently setting up my hammock and my tarp system. First things first, tree selection. So I found 2 trees here that I'm going to use today. What I typically do is I'll take my trekking poles, I usually have 2, and I will get between the trees and I'll hold out my poles. I at least want the trees to clear the 2 poles. I don't want them closer than my 2 poles. And ideally, a couple additional feet on each side usually seems to work for me. Another thing I typically look for, which unfortunately I don't have today, is a flat, smooth surface. I've got the smooth surface, but I am on a bit of a slope. It's not too bad. It'll work for this trip, but typically I do try to find something flat, just so it makes it easier to get in and out of the hammock, to walk around camp, and mostly so that all my stuff I have on the ground doesn't have a tendency to start rolling downhill, because that can be a problem if you're on a really steep slope and there's like a stream or a drop off or something. You don't want your stuff rolling off a cliffside. So I've got a couple trees here. I think they're going to work pretty good. And first thing I usually do is, assuming it's not raining, is I set up my hammock first. I like to get my hammock set up, get it all dialed in exactly where it's going to be, and then I will set up my tarp so that I can center the tarp over the hammock and have it, as high above the hammock as I want it to be. It's a little easier for me to have the hammock up first and use that as a reference point for how I then want to set up the tarp. So I'm going to grab my hammock and get started. Today I'm using my War Bonnet Traveler XLC. It's an 11-foot hammock. So the first thing I usually do is I'm going to pull out my tree straps. I got a couple tree straps here. I can't remember the exact type that they are, but I will put a little description down below of what type of tree straps these are. And I'm usually going to set my tree straps at each tree at about head level to start. And then once I hang the hammock from the straps, I will start making adjustments to the height of each strap from there. So right about head level to start. And I don't have any fancy hardware for my tree straps or anything. I just run them through the loop at the end of the strap. And depending on how far apart your trees are, my straps are fairly on the longer side. So sometimes, and I might need to do that here, sometimes I'll run the strap around the tree a couple times. Again, it also depends on how thick the tree is. But if I need to shorten the length of my straps, I'll run them around once or twice. And I might need to do that today, but I'm going to start by getting the hammock out first and then see if I need to do that. So I keep my hammock in what's informally called a black bishop bag, which is basically a stuff sack. I think this actually was a stuff sack for one of my underquilts. It's a stuff sack, it's got a drawstring, and then I sewed, actually, my mom sewed at my request, a little hole about the size of a quarter, just in the upper end of it, the upper corner right here. And what I do is the hammock goes in here, one end of the hammock suspension comes out this hole, and I use a whoopee sling suspension system. So what I can do is whatever side is coming out the hole, that's going to be my head end. And today I want my head end on this side. So I take my whoopee sling suspension system coming out of the hole of the black bishop bag. I'm going to go ahead and hook this up. So I'm just going to hook on my suspension to my tree strap, and then I can pull my hammock out of the bag like so. And what this bag is going to do, since the suspension is running through the hole, is this bag will sit here on my hammock and it will serve as a little stuff sack hanging at my head end that I can use to put stuff in. And then when I'm ready to pack up at the end of the trip, I can just pack everything back into the bag. So let's see here. My hammock does have a permanent ridge line on it. So I can already tell that I am definitely going to have to wrap these tree straps around the tree a couple times, because even if I shorten these whoopee slings all the way up, there's no way this hammock is going to be high enough in the air. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap each one probably twice, because I do need to really shorten this up. So I'm just going to take the strap out of the loop. I'm going to wrap it around the tree a couple times and then put it back through the loop. This does help to kind of distribute the load a little bit better on the tree, so you're not pulling quite as hard on the tree when you have a wider surface area going around it with the multiple pass-throughs of the strap. So now I've got just a little end here, but I think that'll be just fine. Just gonna wrap this one around once. It's a little thicker of a tree. I'm not sure the strap will make it all the way around 2 times. When I am hanging my tree straps, I do want to make sure that the straps stay flat around the tree and they don't get twisted or folded over at any point. You want the tree straps, as flat as possible to really distribute the load around the tree, so you're putting the least amount of pressure on the tree itself. All right, so I got my tree straps on. I think they're at the correct length. So I'm going to go ahead and hang my hammock. Again, keeping the bag at the head end. All right, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the whoopee slings to adjust the height of the hammock, and also that'll help me gauge the tension of the ridge line. What you ideally want is when your hammock is hung at the appropriate height that you want the ridge line to be firm, but not like guitar string tight. You want to be able to at least twist it a little bit like this. You don't want it sagging, and you don't want it super tense. You can still put a little bend in it. That's usually how I determine when my hammock is correctly hung. So first thing I do when I first set up the hammock is I'll go ahead and sit in it and just kind of see where I'm at. So this height is actually pretty close to perfect. Maybe just a smidgen lower will do. I'm now going to test the ridge line. The ridge line it's a little tight. It's not super tight, but I can't really get a bend in it. So I think if I do lower this a little bit, that'll loosen up the ridge line and we might be able to get right into a good spot on nearly our first attempt. So I'm just going to loosen the head end a little bit. One thing that I do find that is really comfortable, and I'm not the only one, is I like my head end to be about a foot lower than my foot end. I find that that really helps get me into a comfortable position when I am laying down. And it's not the case that when you're laying, your head's going to be below your feet. You'll end up flattening out, but it's just for whatever reason having this end a little bit lower, so you're kind of sagging towards the head end as you flatten out, helps to get a more comfortable lay. So I usually try to get about a foot lower on the head end. That being the case, I'm going to loosen the head end and lower it a little bit. All right, that looks like it might be all right. Let's give it another test. This is a pretty good height. I generally like to be sitting with my legs and my knees at a 90-degree angle, so my feet are flat on the ground. It's helpful for getting up and sitting back down. You can also sit here and do things a little more comfortably. So this is a good height. I'm going to test the ridgeline again. Perfect. That's what I want. Just a little bend right there. Otherwise it's still tight, but you can just a little bit of flex. So I now have my perfect position. Let's give it the official test. Oh yeah. There's no way I'm putting my feet in here though. Look at that mud. All right, so we are good with the hammock. Next step is we're going to set up the tarp.